Chapter 12. Kevin relaxed behind the wheel of his new SUV and turned up the sound on the high-fidelity stereo. He had bought the vehicle a week ago, but had been too busy to even drive it out of town. The last month had been hellish. Following the desertion of his entire staff at the newspaper, he had to throw together a staff to run the place out of thin air, dumping much of his law practice workload off on a very disgruntled secretary and an equally unhappy partner. Today is not a day to worry about things, Kevin, old boy, he thought to himself. Today is a day to enjoy your new ride and the blue skies. He crested a hill on Highway 81 and started swooping down towards the river plains below when he spotted a solitary rider on a bicycle descending the same hill at a high speed. Immediately he recognized the cyclist, and a slow grin spread over his face. "I bet I can scare the shorts right off of you," he said aloud, hitting the accelerator. Kevin's massive vehicle swooped down from behind the rider as the lawyer edged his truck over towards the edge of the road. Too late, he realized that his new SUV was nearly 2 feet wider than his previous car. Despite a last-second screeching swerve, Kevin DeWitt heard a sickening thump as he skidded out of control. The ring of the phone woke Jessica with a start. Light was creeping through her window, and groggily she realized that it must be morning already. She had decided to sleep in on this Sunday morning, after putting in another week of hard work with David on the house. The two of them had been putting in 12-hour days, and she knew that he had been working even after she would leave. At night, about the only time that David spent relaxing at all were the morning bike rides that the two of them had been taking together, each day before work. The rides were still competitive, but the two of them had learned to travel at the other's pace. She had been hoping that David would open up to her more, but although there was an obvious attraction, something seemed to be holding him back. No doubt, there was a lot of stress as the two of them worked frantically to get the house done in time for the tour of lights. It had been a big debate between the two of them. David had been insisting that the house would be ready in time for the two of them to be a host home in the community-wide event, but Jessica was sure that there was no way that they could possibly be done with the house in time. Last Monday, as Jessica was shopping at the grocery store, she saw a flyer for the tour and was shocked to see that her house was listed. She ripped it off the bulletin board and later waved it under David's nose. "How could you do this?" she said. "Everybody goes to this. The whole town is going to show up on our front porch and expect to be entertained in this house. We won't be ready. We won't even be close." David continued working on the doorway. "We are going to be ready," he said in a calm voice. "I will do whatever I have to do to get it that way." She had been feeling sore and tired, with hands that felt like they had been used for pincushions, so she had decided to sleep in this morning. Ring, 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 ring. Sure that it was David wanting help with something, she walked over to the phone and answered with a curt "What?" "Jessica, thank God it's you. I was so worried." She heard the almost frantic voice of Emma. Instantly awake, Jessica's heart fluttered. "What's wrong, Emma? Are you okay? Is Bill okay? Do you need me to come over?" "No, honey, we were worried about you," Emma said. "I am fine. Why are you worried about me?" Bill had the scanner on. Emma said, "You know how old habits die hard. There was a call that came in for the ambulance. There was a car-bicycle accident on Highway 81 a bit ago. We know you ride out there all the time. We were afraid it was you." A resounding click was the only sound that Emma heard as the other end of the phone connection went dead. The emergency room area of Lewis and Clark Memorial Hospital was usually empty on a Sunday morning, but today it was very full. Dr. Ron Collins, the on-call physician for the weekend, walked between the two rooms that were filled with nursing staff, checking on the welfare of his two patients. Both men were fortunate, he thought, reviewing both sets of fresh x-rays that the duty nurse handed him. Kevin DeWitt was a longtime friend and golfing partner, and he was glad to see that friend's injuries did not appear life-threatening, despite having rolled his vehicle 6 times. Collins had seen the severe bruising on DeWitt's shoulders and chest where the seat belt had kept him secured, and was convinced that the belt had saved his friend's life. Barring any internal injuries, it looked like Kevin was lucky enough to get away with some bumps, cuts and a sprained ankle. The other patient, David Miller, was in worse shape. David was somebody that Collins had never met. Everybody in Riverton knew who he was by now, of course, but Dr. Collins had never had the pleasure of talking to the man. David wouldn't be talking for at least a few more hours, having been sedated so that Collins could fix the broken wrist and lower bones of his left arm. He also had suffered a concussion, as well as many scrapes and some serious bruising. Noting that they both were stable, Dr. Collins went outside to the front nurse's station to order them both moved into rooms, and he was not surprised to see the very anxious face of Jessica Thomas as the girl walked in the emergency room door. Yes, he thought to himself, she would be the one to be here for Mr. Miller. He knew all about their affair. After all, Riverton is a very small town. Are you his family, Jessica? Irene Miner asked from across the counter. Irene, you know I am not. Jessica replied tersely. How is he? Don't give me the runaround. I've known you for what, 5 years, ever since you moved here from Hannibal. You know I am not married. Well, I am not supposed to talk to anyone about his condition who is not a member of his family. She said loudly enough for any prying ears to hear, then whispered, he's going to be okay. Looks like some broken bones in one arm, some cracked ribs and a concussion, but not too bad I think. Thanks, Jessica said. I guess I will wait until they take him up to his room. She sighed, and started to head back to the bench. Jess, I like your hair better this way, Irene said to brighten up the mood. Jessica turned back towards the nurse, confused. My hair? It's been this way for years. I know, it's just I like it better than your picture here, she said, holding out a man's wallet. Jessica returned to Irene's desk and looked down at the familiar face in the picture staring back. A face that was very similar to hers, but not quite the same. Jessica's blood ran cold. Susan. The world was fuzzy, drifting between darkness and light. She was out there, somewhere, he was sure. He tried to reach out his hand, but it was heavy and would not move. He tried his other hand, reaching out for her, wanting to feel her warmth, needing to know that he was not alone. Slowly, Jessica wrapped her hand around his and held it gently as he drifted back into darkness. It was too much for her. Her mind had overloaded. Confused, exhausted, stressed to the point of breaking, there was nobody for her to turn to for help. For the first time she knew, really knew, that she loved this man, but that knowledge gave her no comfort at all. Not with the memory of that picture staring out of his wallet scalded in her mind. Still, on some elemental level, she knew that now, at this time, she would not, could not, walk away from him. There were too many questions, and no answers, but he was hurt and alone, and he needed her by his side. She knew that, for now, she would take care of him and whatever it took, she would get his project done for him. Like it or not, happy or not, she had promised him she would. She had a promise to keep. I want him arrested. Jessica spat at Sheriff Dustin Graves. Kevin tried to kill him, and I want him in jail. Honey, calm down. The lawman told her, I know you are upset, but this is a hospital and you are going to have to keep your cool, okay? I want him in jail, Dustin, she said in a quieter, but menacing voice. You and I both know there is no reason he would have hit David on that stretch of road unless he was trying to. The shoulders are wide and you can see down that hill for a mile. He had just got the vehicle, Jess. The sheriff told her. He told me he misjudged how wide it was. It was a pretty big SUV, and he did roll at trying to swerve out of the way. Since when did you get to be his lawyer? Jessica said sarcastically. I know you two are friends, but you need to do your job. That man is a criminal and should be punished. When I complete my report, I will give it to the prosecuting attorney if you like, Dustin told her. Jessica snorted, Kevin's brother-in-law. Come on, Dustin, you know that's a waste of time. I am telling you straight, here, Jess. He said, like it or not, there is absolutely no criminal case here. Even if I thought he was trying to hit that man on purpose, I couldn't prove it. You were a reporter, you know the way these things work. If your friend wants to file civil charges against Kevin, he is going to get some money. Perhaps he will get a lot of money. But criminal charges, not happening. Jessica sighed and nodded, conceding that the sheriff was right, and hating every minute of it. When I see Kevin again, she thought he is going to wish he were behind bars. At least that way he would have them between us for protection. I tried to tell you several times, David said, propped up in his bed. I was actually in the process of telling you that day in the woods when Kevin called on and you ended up pitching your phone. Jessica stood staring at the cheap print of an ugly painting that adorned the hospital room. The semi-private room's other bed was empty at the moment, and the door to the room was closed. That was a month ago, David, she said softly. A month during which we have seen each other 12 hours a day, at least. I know, he said. I tried to come up with the words, but I didn't. No, you didn't, she said, without turning. So now what? Where do we go from here? He asked. I am not sure we go anywhere from here, Jessica said with a coldness that burned inside. I don't know what to think about this. I feel like you have lied to me, but I know you didn't. This hurts. A lot. She turned to him with tears streaming down her face. For a while, I thought that perhaps. David reached out his good hand, but Jessica turned her back and started again at the ugly picture. I can't. Jess, don't you see? She asked. How do I know that when you are looking at me, that you are seeing me? How do I know that you are not really seeing her? I don't know how to deal with that. I am not sure I can. She's gone, Jess. Don't you think I know that? Jessica hissed as a fire rose inside of her. Every day, I think of the accident. I keep thinking that the hurt will go away, and sometimes it seems like it will, but it never does. And now this, she said, just when I was hoping. I am sorry, he said quietly. Sorry doesn't matter, David. It's a meaningless word, we are all sorry, but it doesn't solve the problem. So how do we solve the problem? Jessica turned back and looked at him with downcast eyes. I am not sure we can.